Right, because we can, we're going to change the order and we're going to do the Cemeteries paper first, because Councillor O'Neill's not here to introduce her paper. So we'll go to...
No, this is me.
It's Councillor Fitzsimons.
Yeah.
I think this takes priority at the moment. We have to work through our papers and then that's later. Oh, we will go back to the item 2.3. It was ready.
No?
Okay, Councillor O'Neill, sorry to catch you on the hop, but we're ready to debate item 2.3, submission on proposed national policy statement for Indigenous biodiversity. Yeah, so you introduce it now.
Kia ora, councillors, and thank you for briefly coming back for lunch. Apologies for being a minute late. I welcome the opportunity as portfolio holder for the natural environment to introduce this submission on the Indigenous Biodiversity Strategy with government, and as I understand, Mayor Foster has indicated he would like to second this paper. Firstly, I'd love to acknowledge the officers, Ona and Tim, and thank you for all of your hard work and the sort of relentless shuffling that we've done at the end there in order to make, hopefully, a whole lot of my colleagues much happier. I'm going to read a paragraph from the Amended Strategy, which touches on a few of our amendments in the last few days and in the last week. So, such of our biodiversity was destroyed when Wellington was cleared for Pākehā settlement. Many of our native ecosystems have been cleared or extensively altered, and this trend continues today. The ongoing degradation of our natural environment is not an option. In June 2019, Wellington City Council declared an ecological and climate emergency. Within this strategy, by 2050, DOC aspires to turn the tide on declining native ecosystems and see rare habitats like wetlands, sand dunes, and braided rivers and cloud forests grow. I would like to, so this is quite a fantastic a strategy document that we have the opportunity to consult on as well. So I'd like to also ground the discussion in a little bit of looking back at the history of legal structures and land alienation in Wellington. This, in the past, has been the role of a national or distant government through different things like the Land Acquisition Act. So the acquisition of land, which took away kai, food sources and the well-being, led to material poverty, and this is still an ongoing process to restore our taonga, a process that Wellington City Council has a long track line in leading, but still is a long way to go. If you'll just bear with me, this is context for our submission as well. And so when we talk about Indigenous biodiversity, native land, flora and fauna, it is important to acknowledge where we stand and where we come from in this place. Moving forward, I hope that in local and in central government we have intersections of whānau-led strategies, socio-political engagement, economic resilience and economic security as a focus on Māoritanga. Cultural fluency looks like well-supported, informed natural environments, and it looks like Wellington being connected to its whenua. And I'd like to start in that place because I know that we cannot move forward if we don't work in partnership with these communities, which is a point that is so eloquently laid out in this submission as well. There are 3 key points I'm really glad that we're making in this submission, so I'm just going to run through those quickly. The first is investment in a network. For me, New Zealand is unique, but our native biodiversity also supports the way that we interact with the world. We give life to it and feel comfortable to place our feet firmly on the ground. In order to reverse the decline of species, we need to invest in green belts and blue belts and a highly mobile fauna. I've got a little picture of like a blue penguin to help me with my notes as well. And so that talks and speaks to the need for a far-reaching national strategy. It's not something that Wellingtonians should do in silo, but when talking about highly mobile flora and fauna, the point is that we've got this beautiful basis of setting up intense and ecological rich environments like our native birds in Zealandia, but that those birds will have to travel some places sometimes, so it's important that we work with the hut and with Wairarapa as well, and broader than Wellington. The second point I'd like to make is partnership, which touches on my opening. Te Malcolm at Te Tira Whakamātiki of the Māori Biosecurity Network has also agreed with several of these points. And to quote him, "In my opinion, the strategy does not go far enough to clearly outline the partnership of central and local government and the need to have iwi into effectively developing and implementing a biodiversity strategy. This is all more important when we consider the history of the Department of Conservation." The last point that I would like to make is support for carrots and how we quantify nature's health. The strategy requires significant investment in science and knowledge. It requires investment in communities and in partnerships and targeted funds in order to achieve these aspirational goals. Investing in nature is investing in the Māori of all New Zealanders. I would like for us, and as laid out in our submission, to underpin both national and international commitments that the government has made to establish a national data and infrastructure for nature-related data collection and publication to inform any policy and action. And that's on the basis of the strategy that interacts with the significant natural areas. And lastly, as a young person sitting on a council in 2020, these kind of policies will set up the protection of our natural environments for years to come, and I want to do more to prevent the loss of biodiversity, but I also would like to strongly acknowledge that this cannot be done without partnership with local iwi and mana whenua and engaging with Māori tikanga. The assertion of how we should be managing this beautiful taonga falls against what we seek to be, if we claim that we are, when we say that we are guardians. We have first a duty to care of our land and to our community before a duty of management. Thank you, councillors.
Very powerful. Mayor Foster, you'd like to second? Do you want to speak now?
Yeah, look, I was very happy that for Terry to do the introduction. I'm delighted that we finally got ourselves in a position as a nation that we have a national policy statement on Indigenous biodiversity. Tam, I thought, very helpfully said during the questions on Tuesday that there have been a couple of cracks at doing this in the past and they've fallen over. So I want to say thank you to you two both for incorporating. We actually really support this happening. I think quite a few of us said on Tuesday that we were kind of picking the holes in it. We've got to get it. The first thing is we've got to get it across the line. The next bit is getting it right. And sometimes perfect is the enemy of good. So I think this is really important. And I just remind us all that we declared a climate emergency last year. We also declared a biodiversity emergency, because the reality is we could fix the climate, maybe. We've got a big challenge there. But if we completely, if we lose half the species on the planet, what will we have done? We won't have not have done it. We've not have done a good job. And New Zealand is one of the global hotspots for biodiversity in terms of biodiversity which is under threat. And the simple reason is that we've been, these islands have been separated from human beings and from mammals for 70-odd million years until we turned up, about 1,000 years ago, and hey presto, we've made a bit of a mess. So it is great that this is about trying to fix some of the damage which has been done. We'll only ever fix some of the damage which has been done, because some of it is irredeemable unless science can bring back species to life. We're not going to be able to fix some of these things and repair the extinctions which have been done. I also like that I think one of the things which in the submission we probably ought to do a little bit more of, because there's a lot which is focused on the backyard taonga work, which I think has been really fantastic. What I think we probably need to blow our own trumpet a little bit more about is the incredible environmental restoration journey which we've been on for the last 25 plus, nearly 30 years. And we ought to tell them that actually what we have done as a council, it's not only, it starts right at the front, but it is, we're doing substantial, page 2, Wellington City Council has already carried out a substantial amount of work to provide greater protection for significant natural areas and Indigenous ecosystems. So I think we could expand on that a little bit, because the next bit in the same paragraph says we took a different approach to other councils, and that could be misread to think that the thing we've been doing is the SNA work. the SNA work's been brilliant, but we should also be able to blow our own trumpet about saying, hey, look, we've created an outer green belt, we've started restoring a town belt, we've got our community involved in active environmental management, we've been doing pest management, we're doing predator-free Wellington. So there's some things which we can talk about there. And of course we've got Zealandia as the crowning glory of all that. So there's a whole lot of things in which we have done to restore our environment, and that's why we can call ourselves the natural capital, and we are an example to many others. It's not a job that's complete, but I think we can probably make a little bit more of that. And I hope that people would be able to accept that as a minor editorial amendment, because it's just a statement of fact, but we ought to tell the government a little bit more about that. But otherwise, I just want to say it's great. We should be involved in this. We should be trying to tell our stories in doing this. And in fact, the comment was made in the last debate. Was it you, Terry, that said that in the Soul conversation about, or was it you, Tam? Somebody said in the discussion we were having about what we can tell globally is in a world where biodiversity is under such pressure because of the way we live and how many of us there are, that we can actually say, actually, we're starting to turn the corner. And for me, that was the magic of Zealandia when Jim Lynch first said, here's what we're proposing to do. It's not merely that we were trying to reduce decline, it was we were actually trying to enhance the natural environment and improve it. So I'm delighted to second this, and I think we want to continue to engage with the government on the restoration of Indigenous biodiversity, not just in Wellington, but across New Zealand as a whole.
Councillor Pennant. Sorry. Yes, I was just thinking that. Needs a seconder. Yes, okay, Councillor Phone.
Kia ora, and thank you, Andy and Terry, for your comments, and also thank you to Honor and Tim for all the work you've done for this and the vision of so many Wellingtonians who have made it an amazing place that we want to be, and I'm totally in support of the work you've done in the submission to date. I do want to bring up just the part about the landfill, and I would like to make an amendment around the existing that the existing landfill is regionally significant the existing landfill is currently regionally significant infrastructure, but we are working towards a full resource recovery system and heading toward closing the landfill. And I think just what we've got at the moment, councillors, is a situation where we're about to extend the landfill into an incredibly beautiful environmental part of Wellington. And the problem is we actually can't see it. And so, and this breaks my heart that we're actually valuing our waste more than our environment. And I don't think Wellingtonians really want to do that. And I think it's important that through this document and the submission that we signal to the government the direction we need to go in to keep our environment at the forefront. So yes, I do ask you to support me in this so that we are clear on the direction we need to take to support our biodiversity and our ecological emergency. And I think this will be seconded by Councillor Paul. We're going to?
Yeah.
Ione?
Councillor Pennant.
The landfill. It's not successful yet, but we'll. Look, could I just, I'll speak just once. I'd like to thank Mayor Foster and Councillor O'Neill for your contributions, and also just to acknowledge Mayor Foster for his many years of work in this area, actually. You and I have disagreed on some environmental issues, but not this one, so thank you for all that work, and it's been obviously a long time in the running. Thank you to the officers for the huge amount of work that they put into this. It's a very detailed submission, and also for listening when we said we found it a bit. We wanted a positive vision behind this because actually, as Mayor Foster said, we did declare an ecological emergency, and I'm grateful for people's support on that. Look, just the issue I want to raise is this conflict between the urban development NPS and this biodiversity one. Because this, for me, is the crux of the problem, that human needs often take precedence over the natural environment, and I think it's right that we've raised, look, there's a conflict and it needs to be resolved somehow. But I think, like my worry is always is that the environment loses out, and of course in the long run that actually compromises human life. So possibly the analysis needed to be pushed a bit further. The office has had some really great statistics, and I'd like them to circulate them about how much concrete is in each of our suburbs. Some are very, very, very dense, 97% I think in the CBD, and so that will definitely inform our thinking on at the district plan time. But I think we are going to have to really wrestle with this when we're doing our district plan and our spatial plans, that we need more space for green. It's absolutely essential, and that does raise a real challenge in terms of trying to fit in apparently 80,000 more people. My view is we certainly need some more house density. There are 2 people to a house seems to me to be quite modest. And just finally, of course, I'm very pleased to support Councillor Foon's amendment. Look, we do have a landfill at the moment, but obviously in an SNA this isn't great. We should be absolutely moving towards closing down landfills and going into full resource recovery. Councillor Foon and I do, however, have a slight disagreement about how beautiful the resource recovery system is going to look. She's undertaken to make it look gorgeous, but there is a bit of a There is a bit of an issue when we do things like recycling and composting. It isn't at a large scale. It isn't always the most beautiful. So there will still be some impact on the environment, likely. But I'm putting my faith in you. As beautiful as this gold jacket is that you designed, I'm sure you will make our resource recovery system look amazing. And Councillor Free has been in my ear about worms. We need a lot more of them. Kia ora.
Would anyone else like to speak to this amendment? Councillor Calvert.
Sorry, I'm just a bit confused. If we're working towards closing down the landfill, what have we got in its place when we're putting 80,000 more people in the city?
We are moving to a fully circular system.
I think this is a problem to me. Look, we're putting 80,000 more people in our city. We talked about not exporting our rubbish overseas. We're now saying we're going to export our rubbish elsewhere in the country. So, look, I appreciate the sentiments, but to me this is, dare I say, it's a bit of virtue signalling, so I'm not going to support it.
Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor O'Neill.
Could we get some officer advice on this amendment, please?
Can we have Moana? Could you give us some? Thank you, that's very helpful. Councillor Free.
I actually kind of wonder about the wording. So I think with the intention of heading towards closing down the landfill, it's kind of like, I'm not so sure about that wording, but wouldn't it maybe be better to say with the intention of heading towards
Being waste-free, which is
yeah, like being waste-free, or even just not needing further landfills, because in all reality, I don't think we're going to succeed in closing down the landfill altogether. I'm just making that point. I find it really difficult to vote for this, thinking we're actually never going to need landfill for anything, because I think we're going to.
Thank you. Councillor Foon has indicated she's willing to change it, so thank you. Would you? Yes.
The person who previously led this work, you all signed up, those returning councillors, to having a waste-free city. That was the vision that we all signed up. Now, obviously, there's a long journey to go on that one, but we did sign up to being that state.
So just confirming what you were comfortable with it changing to, Councillor Foon, because it is your amendment. Can you turn your microphone on? Sorry.
Heading towards not needing the landfill.
Not needing. We just need to make sure we use microphones, and probably we're getting officer advice as well, because on the live streaming they can't hear us otherwise. Okay, and Mayor Foster, you're going to speak to this.
Yeah, look, I completely agree with where Laurie's coming from in terms of the aspiration to zero waste. I also agree with the aspiration towards zero deaths on the road and a number of other things. And obviously we've got a Te Atakura as a aim to be carbon neutral or zero carbon net emissions. So those are all important. I think the wording you've now got is better, but if anybody actually reads these submissions and gets down to that level of detail, I wonder if they will query going, hang on, you're just, the version as it originally was, closing the landfill, and they go, hang on, you're just applying for resource consent. And they wonder what we were doing. So I think, the point that's made there is the submission is amended to acknowledge that general direction I'm comfortable with, but I think we do need to make sure that we have a credible wording in there, especially as we go out to we're going through the resource consent process. Two other things just quickly to mention that. One is it's not just our landfill. There is another landfill which we're working with at the moment on our property, which is causing no end of grief. So we need to be thinking about that as well. Although it's not so much for here. And the other thing really is how, in terms of the landfill itself and the process we're going through, is how much it's extended probably becomes the key bit. And if we can minimise that, that is a good forward step.
Thank you. You can have your right of reply now, Councillor Foon.
Thank you for everybody's input, and I fully appreciate this. And actually, I am speaking, and I would like to see an amendment. I'm fine with how you word it, actually, but I'm speaking on behalf of Zealandia, who are really devastated about a landfill encroaching on their ecological boundary. And so that is why we need to make it clear for them, as one of the best assets of our city, that we do not intend to go forward with a landfill culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's vote on this amendment. It's number 4. Okay, we have a division. And that is carried. Thank you. So back to the substantive. Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Paul.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor O'Neill, for this mahi, and Mayor Foster for bringing this forward to us. Great stuff. Thank you, Moana, for all your hard work in preparing this, and I just want to mahi to you, Tim and Honor, for your mahi, but also to our environmental reference group who have also fed into our into our feedback around this submission, so ngā mihi to them as well. I'm really excited about this. I said it on Tuesday. This is the 3rd time that it's going through, and it's failed every time. And let's just talk about realities, and I know Andy's already talked about that. The reality is 80% of our native birds, 88% of our native lizards, 100% of our native frogs are at risk of extinction. We cannot bring them back. We cannot bring back the huia nor the moa. We cannot bring those species back. Every time this fails, every time we attempt to dilute its strength, our trees and our birds lose. And yes, that might sound airy-fairy and silly, but that is what people love about Wellington. They love having tui and kaka and kereru flying around their backyard. Sean, I know you want to see some birds out in Roseneath. We can get it going, but this is part... Exactly, and I bet it adds so much value to your life. So I wanted to talk about this policy statement, and how I wanted to talk about Hutia Te Rito a little bit, because in the National Policy Statement for Freshwater there is the concept of te mana o te wai, which local authorities have been taken to court over and lost. So I wanted to talk about what our obligations might be under this policy statement, so everybody's super duper crystal clear. So Hutia Te Rito comes from the whakatauki that all of us know Hea ha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What's the most important thing in this world? It is people, it is people, it is people. But actually at the start of that whakatauki, it says, Hūtia te rito o te harakeke, kei whia te karimako e ko. If we strip the flax or our community or our city of what is the essence of it, which is our biodiversity and our nature, then where will the bellbird sing? And that matters. That is important, because when I have children, I want to be able to point to them, each of our birds, and tell them where they come from. I want to be able to say that we did all our very best to protect them, and I want to preserve that. And I'm sure every single one of you want that for your children as well, and for your grandchildren as well. So please, let's do our very best to see this national policy statement through and to protect and restore the balance of what we have taken so much from already. Thank you.
Kia ora. Ngā mihi Dan for that wonderful. Yeah, it was beautiful. Tear in my eye. Thank you. So I just want to speak to support the amazing work that our officers have been doing over the last while with the backyard taonga. I've got to see firsthand how challenging it can be to talk to people about our taonga, and our officers have done an amazing job of supporting people through that process, because people of course feel very passionate about what they believe is theirs, and I sat in a meeting where we ended up in quite a challenging conversation about what is really ours, because as we know, there's a beautiful whakatauki that says when humans are gone, the earth remains. And I think it does remind us that we don't actually really own anything, because we're gone and it's still here. So I think it's really important to acknowledge the mahi that you've been doing, and I think it's been amazing watching some people go on that journey from feeling quite upset and worried to going, actually, you're going to say that's not a taonga? I want it to be a taonga. So we're seeing our communities go, actually, we really value this. And I would just also like to acknowledge the Mayor for the work that he has done in this area. It's been a long, hard journey. I know that there have been times when you've had to convince people of things that they haven't been able to see, and I really want to acknowledge that, and your support of extending our environment through the purchase of the Forest of Tāne, which is now Ngāhere o Tawa, and it was really great to see you in action there, and to see that you've done that over many, many years. So thank you for that leadership. And yeah, I just really, really excited that we're at the process where hopefully this one can get across the line, and we don't want to lose any more birds. We don't want to lose any of our biodiversity. It's so valuable. I have some taonga in my whānau which has feathers from birds which no longer exist, and it feels very sad to think that we don't get to hear those bird calls. You go to Te Papa, and one of the most beautiful parts, but also confronting, in the Taiao exhibition is the bit where we can't hear the bird calls from the birds that have become extinct, and you just think, gosh, we don't want that to happen anymore. We want our rangatahi, our tamariki, our mokopuna to get to experience that. So yeah, very exciting. There's no one else on our speaking order, so we're ready to vote on this. Oh, right of reply, sorry. You get a right of reply. You don't have to take it.
I think that has been very well said. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Ka pai. Okay, we'll vote on this. I was doing so well and then I lost it. Councillor Rush had to go to a water committee meeting. Oh, that's carried unanimously. Wonderful. We're gonna truck on really quickly to item 2.4, the Cemeteries Management Plan Review. Thank you, Councillor Fitzsimons.
I think I can just fairly briefly introduce this, but really just wanted to start by acknowledging the amazing work that our cemetery staff do. I had the very genuine pleasure yesterday of visiting Karori Cemetery and talking to the staff there and hearing their passionate enthusiasm for making sure that the different cultural and religious needs of Wellingtonians are properly met was just actually really inspiring and lovely to hear, and it felt like they really embodied the attitude that we'd want in our city. And I really encourage other councillors to visit there and talk to those staff. Really, this is just about starting the work to undertake a review of the Cemeteries Management Plan. The current plan is from 2003. It's long overdue for a review. Best practice is to review management plans every 10 years, so we really need to do this now. And I think it's worth just noting that the expectations of the community in the last 15 years has changed, and we really need to update it to reflect this. One thing that I thought was an interesting trend is that more and more Wellingtonians are opting for natural burials, and that's when the body is not embalmed, the coffin itself is biodegradable, and there's no sort of headstone that's left. It is something that increasingly people are going for. It does take up more land, but there is less chemicals. 2 years ago there were 5, last year there were 67 natural burials, so it is really something that is taking off. But the reality is we're dealing with a situation where Karori and Makara are at a critical point. The city needs to plan for the future demand and capacity. And I did just want to note that around the world there is an increasing trend for cemeteries to be used partly for recreational purposes, and this review will look at and discuss with residents just getting that right balance between maintaining a respectful atmosphere for bereaved people and their families and other activities like bird watching, genealogy and exploring local history. And it was lovely to hear from the staff at the Karori Cemetery yesterday about a group of 5 women who are in Karori every morning, very, very early. They do a walk through the cemetery, and they've actually, and he said it's rain or shine, the same 5 women every morning go there and do this walk, and it's a very important part of their day. But they've also become sort of part of that cemetery community, because what they do is they notice damage or if trees are down, and they tell the cemetery staff about it. And there's some other really interesting work going on with people who are mapping all where the graves are, and there's a group of volunteers there, the Friends of the Karori Cemetery, who again our council officers have gone out of their way to make sure that they're going to be provided with a space and Wi-Fi, and to be able to give really important information to the community, particularly on the weekends where they come in. I just did want to acknowledge that there are a lot of groups in the community who are work in this area. There's volunteer groups like the Friends of Bolton Cemetery, although that's not part of this plan, but they may well be interested. The Karori Residents Association, the Monumental Masons, the Ministry of Health and Government. There's a lot of organisations who do wish to comment. And one of the really important things is that we make sure that our cemeteries continue to be able to deal with the increased demand from different denominations, and that is something that will be central to this review. And finally, I know that one of the things that was mentioned on Tuesday was really around making sure we get that balance right with recreation, natural burials, but also making sure that that funerals don't become ridiculously expensive for families. And I think the council has a real role to play in making sure that it doesn't cost $10,000 or $15,000 to bury your loved ones, because that is not accessible for many people. And I know that our officers who work in this are very committed to doing what they can to provide accessible and cheaper funerals for people. And I did just want to pick up on a comment that the Mayor made at morning tea time when we were talking about the incredible work that our cemetery staff do, that it would be, I think, very fitting for us to profile that work more, and he suggested it be included as a profile in the annual plan. And I think just having had some small annual report, having some small insight into the work that they do, and also hearing from many people who have buried loved ones in our cemeteries about the incredibly compassionate and kind approach of our staff. It's something I think as all ratepayers in Wellington and residents here we can be very proud of. So I'm very pleased to move the recommendations here, and thank Councillor Condi for just breaking down that recommendation and making it clear that there will be steps that come back to this council for consideration and approval.
Would someone like to second this paper? Terry. Councillor O'Neill, you can... Yeah. Okay.
Yep, councillors, just quickly, hopefully we shouldn't be here too much longer. So this is a paper bringing about the review of the 2003 Cemetery Management Plan. We're supposed to review this plan every 5 years, and so I understand that it is quite timely, and we should take this opportunity for moving for more things. Just wanted to recap over a couple of new and exciting opportunities with this review. The first one is that we can increase in keeping up with our growing and diverse ethnic communities in this city, and figure out new and innovative ways to be able to facilitate and help people to call this place their own when they put their loved ones to rest. We have an opportunity in the new types of burials and the way people go. Natural burials are becoming much more popular. Virtually stacking is becoming more popular. Composting, liquefactions, turning cemeteries into parks and recreation areas, and cremation. And those are just some of the things. But no, this is an exciting opportunity to be able to explore new ways of finding your place in the world when you leave this world. Just lastly, we also have an opportunity to figure out how we can make this act a place to celebrate life, and making it an inviting space as well, and how we keep up with our growing population and the maintenance of that longer term.
Thank you, Mayor Foster. You wanted to speak?
Look, thank you for the introduction, Fleur. That was really lovely, and the reflection of the visit you made to the staff up there, and that's really great. So if we can manage to tell a little bit more of their stories and celebrate the work they do, then I think we should absolutely be doing that. So keen to do that. Just a couple of things to say, and the reason the reason that we've done the split there is because cemeteries have always had this sort of thing of, are they part of the public health or are they part of the natural environment, and that's why it's appropriate to have the moving and seconding as it has been done. This is a management plan, so it's 10 years, not 5. Terry, but we never made the 10s anyway. I mean, the South Coast Management Plan, I think, is now close to 20 years old. So 10 is just impractical. But yes, thankfully it's not 5. But these go through quite a lengthy process. So for new councillors, it's an opportunity for lots of submissions, and a lot of the submissions will be really in very great detail. Generally what we've done, in fact always what we've done, except for one occasion, and then we didn't get a lot of good input because we didn't do a good process, is you set up a subcommittee to be able to hear the submissions that you get, because people will go into a lot of detail, and you want to work your way through that and then be able to give the feedback back to council, because with 15 of us, we're never going to get that level of richness and detail from people, and people will bring. I'll look at Bev particularly in the back there. People will bring a lot of great wisdom to their submissions. The bit that in the document doesn't really. In the document as it is at the moment isn't highlighted enough for me as the ecology area, but I'm picking that staff are going to pick that up, and that'll be fine. So the last things I just wanted to say, Fleur, you mentioned natural burials. I would say this was the first place in the country where we had natural burials. I had to do a little bit of arm wrestle. I think it was with you, Paul, wasn't it? To actually say we should give this a go. Because we thought that when Mark Blackham, who was the person who came up with the proposal, wanted to do it, looked like a really good idea. So we've done it, and it does give people an option, and I think a very good option. And so the last thing I want to say is just Karori increasingly is moving towards being a closed cemetery. It's very much more a heritage park now, just as Bolton Street and Mount Street, and there's a Duncan Street cemetery in Tawa, Malcolm. Yeah, so there's a number of little cemeteries around. They are increasing the places where we've talked a lot about telling our stories today in various other papers. The story of Wellington in many ways is in the Karori Cemetery, because that's where people have gone and been buried for 150 plus years. So there's a lot of very rich stories. So how we tell that, how we interpret that, how we respect that becomes really, really important about it. And it was something that many years ago we talked about it as a potential candidate for putting some Plymouth Trust funding, and when we've done Newlands Park and Miramar, maybe that's something we can think about. But those are the kind of things which might come through the management plan as we go down this track. So delighted to see it here.
Thank you. And we're back to a right of reply.
Oh, just one very brief thing that I totally agree with the Mayor around the story of Wellington. There is, of course, the Fraser Memorial and the Mrs. Chippy Monument, who council staff tell me they get at least one person a week coming to us to see the Mrs. Chippy Monument, which is a cat, for those that don't know.
She was the cat of one of the Shackleton expedition members.
I'm going to have to go up there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might need a council site visit. We're going to vote on this now. So I'm going to put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, you know what to do, and those against, you know what to do. Great. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We're going to now move on to item 2.6, the Quarter 2 report, and I invite the Deputy Mayor to introduce the report.
Thank you. Look, we've been on a long meeting already. So one of the things I thought I'd point out about this report is although the numbers are sort of cumulative from July, the commentary is on the second quarter. So it can get a little bit confusing. Well, at least it was for me if you didn't realise that. I think there are some real highlights from this last 3 months, or the 3 months that are represented in Quarter 2, which is, I think it's October, November and December. So we had, of course, the election. We opened up Te Papa Takaro or Jimbellage, and forgive my pronunciation, which is the Island Bay Playground. We opened the Waitohi Library in Johnsonville. We formally opened the Hutt Road Cycleway, and there were no doubt other highlights as well. The report does show that there's been some challenges through the year in terms of underspends and overspends. There are some KPIs that have not been met, and we obviously have challenges in the three water space, and there are other challenges as well. But I think it is an honest report, and I trust you've all read it. And I guess there's nothing much left for me to do but ask for a seconder and invite debate if there is any.
Who would like to second this paper? Councillor Condi, would you like to speak to it?
I'd like to say. All right. I just very quickly would like to say that I would love to see in future us be able to give more time to these quarterly reports. I think it's a really important part of our governance role, and having it just the question and answer session mostly during Monday when we didn't really have much time for it, I felt kind of didn't do it justice. So I would really appreciate if we can think about going forward for the Quarter 3 report, how we can actually manage meetings around that so that we can actually take advantage of and perform our governance responsibilities around these reporting events.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Matthews.
Just very briefly, I wanted to update. We did discuss about the research that Auckland Council had done on participation in local government elections, and I just wanted to update you that we are starting to do some work on this. The first step, we're doing a literature review and analysis, and then once we've done that, we're going to look at what research we want to do to find out about the motivations of Wellingtonians, why they did or didn't participate in the local government elections. So yes, I'm happy to report some progress.
Great, thank you. Councillor Fitzsimons.
Yeah, look, I do really just want to comment on the Cycleways program and the parade. It's something I brought up on Tuesday, and I just want to express extreme frustration that we can't have proper answers on what is happening with the Island Bay Cycleway and the Southern Connections project, and we now have three potential, all different reasons why it's been delayed. In October 2018, we approved a paper which said the construction of the approved redesign for the parade would commence late 2019. Now, it hasn't come back to this council table since then, but obviously that hasn't happened, and I don't see any steps really to that happening. What we've had since is a couple of communications with the community. One said that the delay is because of Let's Get Welly Moving and the parking policy, and now we see in here it says NZTA will consider co-investing in the parade once the Newtown and Waripori cycle facilities are constructed. Now, I think we owe it to the people of Island Bay and Waripori and Newtown to be really upfront about what's going on. I asked for a communication, and what happened was that the communication from nearly 2 years ago was resent out just about unchanged. I really am just incredibly frustrated that we say that we've learnt the lessons from the island-based cycleway. I don't think we've learnt any lessons from that cycleway, and it feels to me like we are at risk of making the same, if not worse, mistakes in the future. I think this council owes it to the community to be upfront and honest about what's happening with this cycleway program, because at the moment, we've got 3 different messages: the parking policy, Let's Get Welly Moving, and now NZTA. Now, I would have thought all of those would be entirely predictable, so I'm afraid I don't really believe that those are the reasons, and I really want more information. And usually, if I think, I've got confidence in a council decision and something is coming, I try not to be negative about the council and the community, but people are contacting Laurie and I, and it's very difficult to do anything but just say, we share your frustration, this is getting ridiculous, and we're sorry, and we're in the dark just as much as you are. So just really a plea for, please, can we properly communicate with the community about what is happening with the island-based cycleway and the Southern Connections project, not resend out old communications which are so vague as to be meaningless.
Thank you, Councillor Phone.
Kia ora, Fleur. I just want to support Fleur in her statement there. But I actually want to just highlight some wins. And it's really, it's easy to look at the challenges, and we need to. But wins, in my view, and I'm sure just not in mine, is that we welcome the certification of Botanic Gardens, Basin Reserve, Wellington Museums Trust, and Wellington Cable Car as Toitū Carbon Zero. And this has been led really by Wellington Zoo, who were our first CCO to become Carbon Zero, who were then followed by Zealandia. And just on talking with Karen yesterday, the leadership of these acts, and actually a piece of paper is not what it's about. It's about the organisations are becoming aligned in their want and need to do the right thing, and they're reflecting it through these certifications. So I just want to make sure we see those as a win today through this report.
Thank you. It's also, Councillor Free, would you like a right of reply?
Yes. I mean, it's always easy to nitpick about various things, Councillor, but in actual fact, we are having a workshop on the 12th of March, and there's very good reasons why we haven't had it any earlier, because we've been having lots of other workshops. Our time's been under immense pressure. I too have questions I'd like to have answered, but I'm happy to wait and let the officers actually prepare what they've got to say to us and have a cohesive program presented. I thank Councillor Foon for actually making the point that there's quite a lot to celebrate in this report. I think it's clear looking at this report that our organisation has been under pressure. We've tried to deliver a lot of things and do a lot of things, and I think that's why, there's underspends and overspends, and some KPIs have not been met. But we have been under a lot of pressure, and it is, when you say council, with all due respect, that's us. It's actually us. Yeah. Well, if you're still saying that in a few months' time, I really will be concerned. And I sort of share some of your thoughts about, it has been a while since we've had an update. I'm also a little bit puzzled why the Kuburni projects are flagged red when actually they've all been delivered fairly well, or are in the process of being delivered fairly well. So, there are some questions I have as well. I really do take on board the point that someone made, that I think it was Councillor Condi, that we actually this is important work, and we should have had a little bit more time to digest it and answer questions. But on the other hand, and I think that's something we can address, but on the other hand, I would like to commend the governance team for other excellent, data in this report, which indicates, in fact, our papers have been coming to us in a really timely fashion, and I also commend them, in fact, for getting the minutes up in a really timely fashion. So I actually look at them immediately after the meeting, and then I can really confirm that I know exactly that they are a true and accurate record of our meeting. So look, I invite, this isn't a closed piece of a document either. If you haven't had time to have a look at it properly and in the detail you'd like to, there's always conversations you can raise going forward about the matters in this report. For better or worse, I consider it an accurate reflection of what's taken place, and I think on that basis, I think we can actually receive it and follow through with recommendations from the staff that we're being asked to, I think, whatever it is, accept it, note it, receive the contents, approve it. That doesn't stop you from asking questions going forward.
Great, thank you. We're ready to vote on this. So I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. You all know what to do. That's carried unanimously. All right, we're now going to move into public excluded. So officers recommend that the public is excluded from the following part of the proceedings of this meeting. I'll move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Yeah. Thank you. So we just need to make sure that we've turned the live streaming off. Can you? Oh, we need to vote on it, sorry. Sorry. Would you like to speak to that?
You don't see why this needs to be in public excluded, so I'm going to vote against.
Right, so we'll vote now. That is carried. Okay, so now we just need to make sure that the live streaming is turned off.